Welcome to Brother Owl's Garden. I'm Brian and I honor your presence here today. I'm delighted to bring back a very, very dear friend, a sacred sister, and a wonderful second-time guest here on Brother Owl's Garden. Please welcome all the way from Mexico, Cristina Pepem.
Hello, Brian. Very good to be with you here again.
It's always
Even with
a gift to have you around.
well, you always receive me so beautifully. I feel very, very heartwarmed by the way you are. So thank you.
Well, that is something in me recognizing something in you, recognizing something in me. So it's all good all around.
Okay.
And Christina and I noticed that we must have each gotten the subliminal memo that we're dressed in similar colors, sort of a wine shawl color and sort of a wineish brown color. And of course, I have a long white beard and a kufi and a mala, which means I'm very spiritually advanced. That indicates that, right?
Very good.
I just felt this was my vibe today, and it's just such a wonderful, like I said, a wonderful gift to have you, Christina. And as always, I'm going to turn the platform over to you to whatever it is you want to offer and you want to share today. And what would that be?
Well, for today's conversation, I wanted to speak to sacred embodiment.
Sacred embodiment.
Yes.
And there's Lotus trying to get out my window.
Yes.
And tell us, what do you mean when you say sacred embodiment? What are you referring to?
Well, in reality, we are sacredness itself. Okay. That's just a deep truth. And sacred embodiment is really this process of being fully present, the sacredness that we are, being fully present in now, in the body, in what is around us, in matter, or in the denser energy called matter. So it's really just a process of becoming aware of the sacredness that we are within a body and how this expresses itself. That would be an essential definition.
For those wondering what that sound is in the background, Lotus is contributing to today's episode by having a drink of water before sitting next to me and coughing, which is what she does after she has a drink of water. And this too shall pass eventually. So I love the topic. I love the sentiment. I love the picture of what that means in our being. And I think I know where you're going with this. And I may have a couple things to chime in to support your topic. And what has been your experience of becoming more and more embodied in the sacred, Christina?
Yeah. It has been a journey of releasing much of the conditioning, because basically that's what covers up the remembering. Hello. That is sacred embodiment. Cats are perfect for sacred embodiment. They're just that they know how to be in the body, and they know they're sacred, and they take care of themselves, and just really their capacity for self-love is very, very present.
Eckhart Tolle said, I have lived with many Zen masters, all of them cats. And if you do observe cats, you see what it's like to be unthinkingly unself-aware of just being attuned to the Tao, or resting in Zen, or in unity with spirit, whatever. They don't question, or there's no thinking about what they're doing. They are just pure flow. And
exactly.
you can see this when they'll take a few steps and drop and suddenly be in a resting state in a cool place, because they're just so in the moment.
Yes.
They do
Yes.
remember things. They do dread some things that might happen. I've seen, but they're like 99% of their life is just right now.
Yes. Yes, the way they flow, that really is, I mean, they're a reminder of what it is to be to do or to be sacred embodiment.
Yeah.
And just the way they flow, and like you say, it's not a process of thinking. Actually
Yeah.
thinking sometimes blocks the flow, the fluidity.
I would say not only sometimes, I would say as a rule. And
I would
obviously,
agree.
yeah. I mean, I've mentioned it before. I do tend to mention things throughout different episodes, but when the intellect usurps the throne of the soul, that hierarchy of being, you can call that the Antichrist within. When your
Mm,
ego intellect is running the show within you, that is Antichrist. What that means is that is the antithesis and opposite opposing force of the Christ consciousness or the Buddha nature or your divine being, your embodiment of the sacred. And so much of the world today, although I think it's really starting to crumble, would you agree? These
yes.
these infrastructures of the way things have been run so far really are just collapsing at this point, which in the big picture is probably good, but in the immediate local, this moment, this day might be quite distressing. But all of that is collapsing because the hierarchy is that soul is at the top, and
Mm,
the mind is your possession. It is a tool. It's an analytical, categorical tool. Um, and so I think that with what you say, the sacred embodiment, you need to be living from soul, and soul needs to be at the pinnacle of your inner hierarchy. Would that does that flow with what you're saying?
yes,
Right.
very much so.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I
Yeah, it's
also
really
think,
an uncovering of what we are, as you're saying, the Christ consciousness, the Buddha nature, the light, the wisdom, whatever, whatever one wants to name it. It is the uncovering of it. And this conditioning, the mind that is covered by all of our ideas, fantasies, illusion, etc. And when this starts becoming dissolved and we are more and more present, there's just this natural process of beingness that flows through. And when we're moving in the body, in the world, with a body that is present, that is really the manifestation of the sacred, this is actually felt
mm,
in the world. It's not something, it doesn't, not that it looks a certain way, but it has a certain frequency to it. So when we are in the world in an embodied way of the sacredness that we are, it's a form of service.
mm, mm.
Mhm.
Does that connect in any way, Christina, to the Christian teaching of being in the world but not of the world? How would you
Mhm. I
relate
love
that?
that one. I love that one.
Mm, mm,
Yes. Yes, where it's really about, there are certain traditions where the body is discarded or matter is discarded or the world is seen as an illusion. And of course, there's a truth to that. And yet, what I find with the sacred embodiment, there's a preciousness, really a preciousness when we're present to the preciousness of the body, of even, the emotions, the suffering, the things that happen in the world. When we can really be present to it, we can be present to the sacred that comes through in everything that happens, even
mm,
if it seems like it's disconnected, like it's not sacred, like it's evil. When you are in touch with the sacredness that we are,
mm,
everything is seen as sacred.
mhm,
And there are appearances, that cover it up. But when we can allow ourselves to kind of let these projections melt, projections of the mind just melt away, we
mm,
can see the sacredness and thus bring the sacredness forth in each one
mm,
of our
mm,
brothers and sisters, each, yeah, of ourselves, of
mm,
of creation. So that's a very different way of being in the world. No, you're in the
mm,
world, but you're not of it because you're aware of the deeper beingness of who you are beneath or beyond the projection, illusion, or the
Mhm,
reality
mhm.
of matter of
Yeah,
creation.
yeah. And I also interpret um, that teaching of, being in the world but not of it. I interpret that as you are physically incarnate, dwelling on this planet, in this matrix, in this distorted, upside down and backwards world, which I think this is the inverse negative of absolute reality. This planet often seems to be structured, or at least arranged that way right
Mhm.
now. And so, although you are in it, it doesn't own you. You are not beholden to it. You are not of the same spirit that has corrupted so much of creation and existence. And you move through it, but you don't pick up the muck that
Mm.
that that and you don't get corrupted in your views and your being. As you move through it, you are you are the salt and light of the earth.
Yes.
Although there's a lot that is here that is not of the salt and of the light, but you
Mm.
are to be that. And I think that fits. And
Mhm.
the other thing is, you mentioned something to the effect of, if I could call it something like, being fully present within your body. As I learn more and more about spirit and energy, I've become increasingly aware through those that I discuss this with, that so many in so many cases it's so common for people to actually not truly occupy their body so much as just above their head. They
Mhm.
seem to be, actually, their soul seems to be, that old video game, The Sims, and there's this
Mhm.
thing above their head. It's like that's where most people are. You're not actually experiencing embodiment as
Yes.
much as you're sort of the hand above the puppet, you know?
Mhm.
And we that's a disconnect from the experience that we are meant to be having now, that we are here to be having, which I understand to be a subjective, individuated experience, direct personal experience for the sake of learning and expanding in the evolution of our soul
Mm.
and our
Mhm.
consciousness. So
Yeah.
if we are not fully present in our body throughout this experience, we're kind of a no-show on some level
Mhm.
with that
Mhm.
disconnect.
Mhm. Yeah. This makes me think of when Jesus Christ said, "I and the Father are one."
Mm,
That's that realization, of being completely embodied, completely present to I, the I am,
mm,
and the beauty and the power of that. It's very related to last time's subject of the self, the bliss of self, right?
mm,
So
mm.
it's in being embodied, fully embodied, that the sacredness can come forth. And we speak of how, yes, there are many problems. There's a lot of suffering that is happening in the world. And that has a lot to do with the disconnect, with the forgetting, with
Yeah,
the disembodiment.
yeah. You reminded me of a verse that Jesus said when he was in the square, and the mobs would always gravitate towards him well, they were intrigued by him, some because they saw him as a beacon of light, and others because they saw him uh, as a direct threat to their very barnacled and rigid tradition and dogma. And he was both. And you'll remember in the Gospels the story where he says, "Before Abraham was, I am," for which they wanted to stone him to death, and somehow he
Mhm.
was able to slip through the crowd somehow and get away from them before they did that. But
Yeah.
before Abraham was, I am. And of course, they interpreted that as, you're saying that you're older than our father of this faith, and you're saying you're older than Abraham. This is blasphemy according to the laws, and laws upon laws, and more scrolls and tons of libraries worth of scrolls of laws you're breaking, and therefore you need to die because you're threatening our deeply ingrained traditional rules and dogma. And what I interpret that he was saying is, before the incarnation, the incarnational avatar that you know as Abraham came into existence, the I am always was there, and we all are it. I believe that Jesus was not speaking of me, the man Jesus, existed before, you know. I just think he was referring to the I am.
Yes.
And I also believe that it's a valid interpretation, although not the only one, and certainly debated. And I'm not doing theology ever, but even the scripture, I am the way, the truth, and the life. What if what he was actually saying, which was translated through 4 different languages over 2,000 years by thousands of monks until it got to you and me right now? What if what he actually spoke was, the I am is the way, the I am, or just I am is the way, I am is the truth, I am is the life.
Yes.
And of course, in
Beautiful.
fairness, the next line is, and no one enters the kingdom of heaven except through me. So perhaps in some way, theologically, he was establishing that he's a gatekeeper in that sense. But I think it's a valid consideration to say, what if I am the way is I am is the way, etc. Just a thought. And certainly a good way to live, regardless of the theological implications of those things. Yeah.
Yes. You know, and on that note of the way to live, what kind of practice or practices do you have that help you in the sacred embodiment, to cultivate sacred embodiment?
Well, not to imply or insinuate in any way that I'm some kind of an adept, because I will always swat anything away that would let that thought be presumed. But what I would say is, let me take something off my wall and share it with you now. Can I do that as part of my answer? Okay.
Yeah.
This has evolved. Early on in the beginning of the channel, I made a video which I think I might have called it the 3 pillars of life, or something to that effect. And it's evolved now into this. See how this shows you. I am master of mind. I am master of energy. I am divine love engaged. I am divinity. So I try to constantly hone in on this in my awareness. And they all start with I am, because I don't know how to do this because these cameras are backwards on Zoom. So, okay, yes. I am master of mind. My mind is not the master of me. My mind is meant to serve me, not me serve my mind. As the quote says, the mind is a wonderful servant and a tyrannical master, okay? And some of my viewers may remember the nickname I have for my mind, which is a vortex of, and it rhymes with duckery, all right? As the comedian Dale Jones says, you should see the show going on up here. So it is important for me to live as master of my mind. And then I am master of energy. I have not attained any of these yet. These are things that I am attempting to embody, but I make no claim as to having mastered them yet. And I don't know
Mm-hmm.
when that ever may happen, but I have identified them and pinpointed them as, this is what I need to live and exist toward the attainment of. Again, I don't like to use the word attainment, but this is where I need to move to in my evolution. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And let go of anything that impedes that,
Mm-hmm.
more so than strive and struggle. I've mentioned that in different times. I don't believe that the realm of spirituality is so much a realm of struggling and striving and grinding away. That doesn't seem to be the way. It seems to me to be a way of realizing, releasing, and returning to. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
I am master of energy is I'm very, very new to this one, in the sense of my understanding of how energy works, how energy moves between people and affects me and them, is a new level of awareness that has only recently in my life opened up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like waking up from another level of dreaming, where all of a sudden there's an awareness of it, and then an immediate realization of how much of your life had been lived in unawareness of it. So there's a bit of a jolt there. And then I am divine love engaged. Well, I am arisen from divinity, divine source, God. I am made in the image and likeness, means that I am, I emanate from the same nature that is God's. And so that helps to remind me, not just substantially what I am, but what I need to continue consciously to be, because there is a difference between what we are and what we're being.
Mm-hmm.
What we are is absolute truth, that we are of the substance and essence of divinity. We are that. But what we're being, well, turn on the news. So there is the disconnect. There is the result of the disconnect. Disconnect from self, disconnect from community, disconnect from sacred, the sacred aspect, disconnect from nature, disconnect from spirit, disconnect from God, from divinity. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then the final one, I am divinity. The I am divine love engaged is more, in my mind, serves to, why am I here? What ought I to be doing with myself here? And then I am divinity is the reminder of what I actually am. Whereas the divine love engaged is a little bit more focused on, what am I to be doing? How am I to be?
Mm-hmm.
How am I to be being? But what am I ultimately, period, end of the whole show? I am divinity. And when you talk about sacred embodiment, it reminded me of a kind of a blessing that sort of came to me. And for years, I've used it. Sometimes I've signed letters with it. May you abide in divinity as divinity abides in you. And I think that fits sacred embodiment pretty well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I agree. It's more a process, in my experience, more a process of melting, because paradoxically, you say, I am not there yet, and yet you are never not there. You are always
Right.
that.
Right.
Right. So it's
Correct.
kind of, that's part of the illusion of I'm almost there. I'm almost there. That's an illusion. And that's why I love this image or experience of the melting, because you're just melting into what you already are.
Right. That which is
So
not
that
you
kind
and
of,
not yours is shed.
Mhm.
You're
Yes.
completely
Yeah.
correct, and I'm grateful to you for the reminder of that, because I constantly forget this, which is why I'm someone who prints it out and puts it on my wall. All right. And the only thing I would say, and not to counter you at all, I'm in total agreement with you. But the only thing I would say is I think that I have that dichotomy that you just
Mhm.
pointed out, in the sense of what I mentioned before, that which I am as compared to that which I am being. What I mean is,
Yeah.
even though I already know all this stuff, I already know it all.
Mhm.
I do. I know these things, but I'm not being them. There is still some wire crossed or some disconnection there. There is still that. And so
Yeah.
that's what I mean when I say I haven't gotten there yet. Um, this avatar is not currently being the fullness
Mhm.
of what this I am is, nonetheless aware that I am.
Yes.
That's how I would
Yes.
say that. And it's
Yes.
not justifying it, and I'm not disagreeing in any way. I'm
Oh.
totally agree.
Mhm. Yeah.
Just the
It's
difference
actually
between being
something
and
very simple. Sorry. Mhm.
yeah, I was just gonna say it's just that difference of what we are as compared to
Yes.
what we are being,
Yes.
you know.
Yes. Yes. And I would add to that, that we confuse being and doing.
Mm,
Um, it's what we are doing, and when we just are,
mm,
we're there.
yeah.
And that's kind of what we're not practicing. We don't practice just being there. We are practicing, or as you say, being, when you turn on the news, or all of these, different shadow, or however you want to call them. I think we're very familiar with them. So in a way, it's so ultra simple that all our conditioning and all of our everything just kind of just freezes and says, what do you mean by that, right? And it's as simple and as instantaneous as, in this moment I am,
Mm-hmm.
and I am, and you are, and
Mm-hmm.
we are the I am. And then we start going into the busyness and the thinking, and I have to do, and I have to become, and I have
Yeah,
to, and
in
then
other
the
words, the ego intellect engages and usurps the throne again, and that is antichrist within. And there goes the
Mhm.
yesterday I had a moment in later in the day in the afternoon. I I found myself feeling quite restless and unsettled, and I spoke aloud, or I sent a question. I wasn't asking my intellect to solve anything. I just said, "What is it I want? Peace." I answered
Mm.
it in the same breath. What is it I want? Peace.
Yes.
And I lied down for just a moment and I said, yeah, I need to return to my peace. And in returning to that peace, I don't want anything. I don't need to eat anything. I don't need uh, to watch TV. Well, I haven't had TV for decades, but I don't need to grasp at something. I don't need to put my attention on some other diversion, or as I like to call it, a chew toy. I don't need a chew toy for my insatiable ego intellect to be entertained and amused and occupied. I just want peace. I want to
Mm.
return to the peace that I am. I want
Yes.
to return to the I am peace.
Yes.
And then, as we mentioned briefly before we started this conversation, that night, last night, I had one of the most restful sleeps I've ever had in my life. And I was consciously aware of it in between dreams and things like that throughout the
Mm.
night.
Yeah.
I awakened with the memory of having known that I was getting a very, very good, restful sleep.
Mm.
And I am very thankful for that. But it was funny when the intellect started to kick in, and you know, oh, the kind of energy that people who are addicted, to whatever, when that
Yeah.
starts to kick in, well,
Oh.
no. And I don't remember who said it, but it might have been one of the great philosophers. I'm not so great at remembering who said what, but I remember the point. And the point was, um, when meaning is lost, people seek for pleasure. And in that realm of, I need to be pleased, amused. Okay, well, that's where the addictions and the habits begin and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I was so glad that I called it out. What do I want? Peace. It was before I could even exhale. And I think that that's what we all want. And we all have that. We all are that. It is our core nature. And when we stray from it, wander from it, get distracted from it, when we are not fully present, when we are not fully embodied in our sanctity,
Yes.
that's when we're distracted.
Yes. And that's why for me, the body is a temple, because we're doing this busyness, and then you just return. As you said, I love what you said, peace, because that is what we are all searching for, because it is what we are. But it can sound very lofty and kind of,
Simple.
etheric or disconnected, but it's actually very practical and very down to earth.
Yeah, very simple.
Yes.
What do I want? Peace.
Yes, exactly. And it's there. And that's you feel it also in the body, when the body is tense or when it's relaxed. There's a different quality to it. And that's where, in a way, the more relaxed we are, the more we allow the presence, the sacredness that we are to come forth. And it seems like everything is an antidote to that. Now, the busyness, the doingness, the becoming, all of these things that are outward oriented, and to just kind of have the centripetal just return, and the body for that, because the body is present fully, is a beautiful how can I say it? Yes, a temple,
it's a vessel. It's a vessel of divinity. Yeah, it's the vessel of this individuation of the absolute divinity. And I also would like to compliment you on mentioning that everything is sacred. It's just whether you see it or not. And there are times when that is hard to see. I'm not going to, tell me that hornets are sacred.
Of course they are.
Yeah, but I could convince you otherwise. So something that is beautiful and makes you feel good and of course that's sacred. But what about the things that are harder to?
Yeah.
But what you reminded me of, and I just did a quick check to check the name, and I can't find it. I'm so sorry, I can't remember names too well. But there was a very, very, very well-known Indian saint, and he was a Hindu, and he went to Mecca, where all of the Muslims congregate. He went to Mecca to check out the Muslim faith and what they believe and what is sacred to them, and etc., and to see that aspect. And when he went down there from India all the way to Saudi Arabia, at one point in his obviously very long journey, he sat down to rest his legs. He's been doing a lot of walking, so he sat down on the ground, maybe on a blanket, and his legs were outstretched, as you do when your legs are tired, and there were some men on the street who said, "Oh, no, you can't do that." He said, what do you mean? Your feet are pointing towards Mecca. You can't do that. That is blasphemy. Mecca is a holy place. God is there. And the Indian sage said, "Oh, I didn't mean any offense. Please show me the direction in which God is not, so I could point my feet that way."
Wow.
And they were confounded. And okay, and the point is, where is not sacred?
Yes, exactly.
Show me that, where is it not?
Yes.
And so that was his whole point. And gosh, I really wish I could remember his name. It's very important, but somebody in the comments will tell me, and I thank you in advance. But yeah, it's all sacred. It's just a matter of recognition, awareness, receptivity, perception, being present, fully present.
Yes.
And I'm sure
Yeah.
that you've had the experience, and many viewers as well will have had this experience where you enter a place or you approach a place, you can feel it. There's something really special going on here. And that is a recognition that comes from you being fully receptive and present. And when you travel, when people travel, they love, what normally happens is they'll go to a new place, they'll go to visit a new country for the first time. And maybe it's a 5 or 6 day or 7 day trip, and you'll always see them saying, everything is amazing, everyone is amazing, everything we did was amazing, every amazing, wow, I think I want to live here. Well, here's what's happening. You are absolutely titillated. You are totally abuzz with being fully present. And so you are hyper aware and hyper receptive to the magic that's all around you. But because you were able to extract yourself from the familiar, which you had become dim and numb to, you plopped yourself in a different place where you were not numb and dim and desensitized to it. So you perceived everything that was going on. But it's much the same everywhere.
Yeah.
It's just that there you were fully in your presence. And so you were perceiving everything that was happening around you. You were privy to all the magic.
Yes. Yes, it's just this practice of bringing yourself home. No, we have so many projections outward. We're out, and it's just a practice of bringing yourself home. It's very simple.
Mm.
And yet simplicity is something that is kind of shied away from, because complexity and sophistication is what's important in our society. And when you return to simplicity, there's a desire for it, and at the same time the mind says no way, because if I go into simplicity, I'm going to collapse. And that's the beauty of simplicity.
Yeah, simplicity doesn't always mean easy, but
No.
I completely get it. There it is again, the antichrist aspect, the ego intellect stepping in and saying, whoa, wait a minute, what's going on here? I'm here with my clipboard and my pen, and I'm going to take charge, and I'm going to run this whole thing. That's the intellect. That's what derails your meditation. That's what disrupts your peace. I mean, when those things happen, it is the ego intellect. It is always that. And the ego intellect, and guilty as charged, okay, it doesn't even believe that something meaningful can be simple. Oh, no, can't be that simple, can't be, no. Many years ago, lifetimes ago, I was actually a DJ, and I can't tell you how many times, as my mentor taught me, how many times, if there was hey, I've got everything set up and we don't have sound. Well, what the heck is going on? Why don't I have sound? Oh my God. And your mind starts hypothesizing all these doomsday scenarios of, you must have fried a circuit, or plug's loose. Okay. So you always start with the absolute simplest, most rudimentary thing. Is the electrical current connected? Oh, I forgot to turn it on. Yes, it is plugged in. I thought I hit the switch. I didn't hit the switch. Can you believe that? It was a switch. Or can you believe that the plug was a little loose in the connector? Now I put it in tight. We're fine. So, but the intellect had immediately gone into, oh no. And meanwhile, it's just a plug loose.
Yeah.
So it can be simple. And not only I'll say it can be simple, I think it always is. I really do. And I think that the overcomplication of things is you could say, as a rule of thumb, if you're moving into more and more complicated, I think you're moving farther and farther away from the answer. I really do. I think
Yeah.
that things are simple and that we complicate them.
Yeah.
And we feel a need to complicate them so that they count,
Mm-hmm.
and it another example is receiving unconditional love, divine love. Well, I can't be worthy of that as I stand now. There must be some kind of a struggle that I need to accomplish and achieve so that I can earn that, right? That I understand. That makes sense. Then I can receive it. Nope. P.S. You've already had it forever and you can't lose it and you can't earn it.
Yeah.
And it's already yours. Oh, so I don't need to get tangled up in all this nonsense. Nope. And so what do? You withdraw from it. You let it go. And whenever you let something go, you're releasing yourself from it.
Exactly.
And there's the returning.
Yes.
Realizing, releasing, returning. Because as you so wisely and brilliantly said, you can't not be that. You already are always that. You are already there. There's no getting there. You are there. There's only a disconnect and a moving away from and thinking you need to reattain, but you're already there.
Yes, exactly. Yes, it's turn to yourself and you will see. Turn to yourself and you will be, because we already always are.
And that reminds me of the song by Enigma. I encourage the viewers to look it up. It's called A Return to Innocence by Enigma. And I happen to love that song. A return to innocence. That will be the return to yourself.
Yes.
Cristina, thank you so much for sharing with everybody today and reminding us the priceless and meaningful value, preciousness of being fully present within ourselves, that our bodies are not something to be ignored, neglected, or disdained at all, but on the contrary, they are the most magnificent divine creation of physical things, and they are a gift, and they are a temple, and they are a vessel of the divinity within us. And again, may we all abide in divinity as divinity abides in us.
I love that. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you,
Brian,
Cristina.
for opening the space and for your sharing. Many blessings and much love.
You are perpetually welcome at any time, Cristina, and it's my pleasure and honor, and I'm sure everyone feels the same. Thank you.